morning, Chef Dave Moeller with Sullivan University. I'm here today to talk to you about braising. Not a hard technique, not an easy technique. It's one of those things that you kind of have to be mindful of what's going on in that pan. It's not sauteing, it's you're taking a tough cut of meat and making it tender by how you cook it. So a little attention to detail and be mindful of the process. I'm gonna go through that whole process right now. We've got some beef short ribs here that we're gonna get started. They are a relatively tough cut of meat. They are on the bone. I've tied them so as I'm braising them, the bone doesn't come out. So it's gonna save my presentation. So just follow the steps, if you will. We're gonna heat a pan, we're gonna add some fat. We're gonna let that fat heat up, and while we're doing that, we're gonna season our short ribs a little bit. And one of the most important steps to this whole process is getting a good sear. Okay, that sear is gonna do a couple of things for me. Most people will try to tell you that it seals in juices. It really doesn't. What it's doing is generating flavor, because when we caramelize, we provide flavor, and then also eye appeal. It looks good. If you don't do this step, when you braise a piece of meat without searing it, it ends up looking kind of gray, not very attractive, not very appetizing. So we're gonna get a nice sear on these. The next step is to remove our excess fat. I've got fat in the pan that I'm searing this with, and there's fat coming off of that meat. So I'm gonna try and remove as much of that as I can so I don't have to try and skim it off later. So once we get a decent caramelization, you can see that nice kind of a brown, crusty look to it. We're gonna turn them. We're gonna try and sear them on as many sides as we can. We're gonna remove our excess fat, and then we're gonna add our aromatics. In this case, I'm using just a regular mirepoix, carrot, celery, and onion. You can put just about anything you like in it. You know, maybe you want a hint of mushroom in that finished product. You could put mushroom in it. You could put mushroom stems and trimmings, you know, parsnips, leeks, you name it. So you can put just about any aromatic. And remember, their aromatics are there to provide flavor and to enhance the finished product. The problem with most braises is people do this stuff at home. They throw everything in the pot at the same time. They go to work, they come home, and then they've got pot roast, so to speak. The problem with that is if they put potatoes in it, the potatoes are overcooked. The carrots are overcooked. What we want to do is serve not only a perfectly cooked piece of meat, but also a perfectly cooked accompaniment. So that's where a little bit of attention to detail is going to come in. I'm adding those aromatics in there for flavor and to enhance, but they're going to be pretty much purged by the time we're done. They're not going to have a whole lot of nutritional value. They're not going to have a whole lot of texture, but they will have done what they were intended to do, and that's to enhance the flavor of the meat, to enhance the liquid that we're going to braise it in. So what's going to happen is when I'm done braising these, that's going to come out, and then I can put potatoes in the appropriate amount of time it takes to cook a potato. So not only is the beef cooked perfectly, but the potatoes will be cooked perfectly. If I want to put carrots in, I'll put carrots in then as well. But I just want a finished dish that everything is correct, not just the meat. So we've got a pretty decent sear on those right now. And I'm going to pull that meat aside. And I'm going to grab that pan and pour all that excess fat out of that pan. Okay? That'll go out of the way. And then I'm going to add mirepoix, carrot, celery, and onion. And I'm going to give that a little bit of a saute. Give that a little bit of color, because that's going to enhance the flavor of it. I'm going to add, I've got a little fresh thyme and parsley stem. We'll put that in there. So we've seasoned, we've seared, we've removed our excess fat. In goes our aromatics. We'll give those a little bit of color, a little bit of saute, if you will. And then at that point, I'm going to add liquid. Depending on what I'm trying to accomplish. Liquids can vary. Today I'm using red wine and veal stock, but that doesn't mean tomorrow I can't use a different liquid altogether. I could put tomato and black olives and anchovies in this if I like. As long as it's liquid, it's going to do my thing. It's going to make sure that the process is going to follow through. So today we're going to do red wine and veal stock. Tomorrow I might do something totally different. The key thing to remember is the appropriate amount of liquid. And the appropriate amount of liquid is about 1/2 to 2/3 the level of the meat. That top third should be sticking up out of that liquid. Okay, so now that's going to come up to temperature. And what I'm going to do is cover it. Okay, braises are always cooked covered. They're always done either on top of the stove or in the oven. You can do it in a crock pot. It's fine. I do it at home all the time. I like to use the oven here at the school because I can clear it out of my way when I'm trying to do several other things. I cover it. I put it in a 325-degree oven. And then how do I tell it's done? What I'm looking for is fork tender. There's not a temperature that I can give you for doneness on a braised meat. What I'm looking for is fork tender, meaning this is a real tough cut of meat. I couldn't sear this or grill it and cut it and eat it. It's going to be too tough. So when that is just about ready to fall off the bone, then I know it's done. So we're going to cover this. I just use a piece of foil. The lid on your crock pot at home is fine. But we're going to put a nice tight lid on that, nice tight cover. And basically what I'm looking for is a nice low simmer. I'm looking for a little bit of bubble. I don't want to boil. You can't speed up this process by increasing the temperature. What happens is you end up removing most of your liquid. You'll evaporate most of your liquid, and then you've got problems. So a nice low simmer, that's about 185, 190 degrees. It works really well in a 325-degree oven. When it's fork tender, then we're going to serve it. And typically what I do is I'll take that liquid, take the meat out of the liquid, strain out the aromatics that are purged anyway, and then put it back in a pan to heat. So you can see the color of the liquid that I started with was much lighter. This has reduced. There's not as much liquid there anymore. So what we'll do is we'll just give this a real quick little warm up. You can see how the meat has shrunken on the bones. That's fine. And I'll show you exactly what we're looking for right here on a plate. These I know are done. But we're going to put that, actually I'll just pull, that's fork tender. So you can see the meat coming apart. You have to be very careful getting these onto a plate, because if you're not, you'll ruin your presentation. You don't want it to look like a pile of beef stew on a plate. It should be on the bone if there's bone involved, but we'll put that on that plate like that. It presents very nicely, but only when you cut it with a fork do you realize it's been braised. That meat looks as though it's been roasted. And that's another key element of a good braise. It looks as though it's been roasted, then you take it apart with a fork, and we're good to go. Thanks for joining us.